When the Curtiss C-46 Commando first took to the skies in 1940, it was meant to be the pride of American engineering, a sleek new airliner that would carry passengers in comfort and style across long distances at high altitudes. Its design was striking for its time, a double-bubble fuselage, powerful twin engines, and a pressurized cabin intended to rival the Douglas DC-4 and Boeing Stratoliner. At a time when commercial aviation was still maturing, the C-46's prototype represented bold ambition, yet history took an entirely different course. Within a year of its first flight, the Second World War engulfed the United States, and the elegant pressurized airliner design was hastily converted into a military transport. Instead of carrying businessmen and vacationers, it was tasked with ferrying ammunition, troops, and supplies across some of the harshest terrain on Earth. It was in this new role that the Commando earned its reputation, and not always in a flattering way. The U.S. Army Air Forces ordered the aircraft in 1940, convinced that its large fuselage and strong engines would make it ideal for heavy lifting. The civilian prototype, designated CW-20, was modified with reinforced floors, larger cargo doors, and folding troop seats. It was given a new name, the C-46 Commando. To the Navy and Marine Corps, it was the R-5C. To commanders in the field, it was a godsend, an aircraft that could haul more than its famous cousin, the C-47 Skytrain, over longer distances and at higher altitudes. But to the men who flew and maintained it, it was a paradox, a powerful workhorse that often betrayed them in mid-air, a plane that inspired nicknames like the Whale, the Curtiss Calamity, and most ominously, the Flying Coffin. Its wartime service was defined by the brutal conditions of the China-Burma-India theater, a campaign that tested the limits of every transport aircraft. Allied forces needed to supply troops in China after Japanese advances cut off land routes. The only option was an aerial bridge over the Himalayas, a daunting route known simply as the Hump. The weather was vicious, sudden monsoons, blinding snow, and jet stream winds far stronger than what pilots were accustomed to. Mountains towered as high as 20,000 feet, leaving almost no room for error. For the men assigned to fly over this deadly corridor, the C-46 was both savior and executioner. On paper, the Commando was perfect for the mission. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engines generated 2,000 horsepower each, allowing the aircraft to climb higher with heavier loads than the C-47. It could carry twice the cargo volume, including jeeps, light artillery, drums of fuel, and even livestock. In practice, however, it revealed a sinister flaw, a tendency to catch fire or explode without warning. Between May 1943 and March 1945, the Air Transport Command recorded 31 in-flight fires or explosions. Many others vanished into the mountains, never to be seen again. Wreckage of C-46S soon littered the slopes of the Himalayas, earning the route a grim nickname, Aluminum Alley. The causes were traced to rush design compromises. When the more powerful engines were fitted, Curtiss Wright engineers hastily modified the fuel system. Small leaks were common, but unlike other aircraft, the C-46's wings were unvented. Gasoline had nowhere to drain, so it pooled dangerously at the wing roots. A single spark, often from exposed electrical components, could ignite the fumes and turn the aircraft into a fireball. Pilots spoke of planes suddenly erupting in flames mid-flight, giving crews little chance to escape. Maintenance crews derisively called the C-46 a plumber's nightmare, owing to its complex and failure-prone systems. Curtiss issued hundreds of modifications during the war, 721 by late 1943 alone, but the reputation stuck. Despite these dangers, the Commando remained indispensable. It was the only aircraft that could consistently haul heavy loads over the hump. Its ability to climb on one engine, if not overloaded, provided a thin margin of survival in emergencies. Veterans recalled flying missions with the aircraft stuffed beyond its limits, carrying up to 40,000 pounds when the official maximum was far less. Supplies dropped by the C-46 kept Chinese forces fighting and helped maintain pressure on Japan from the Asian mainland. For all its flaws, the Commando did its job, and thousands of tons of cargo made it across thanks to its immense hauling capacity. Its European service, however, ended in disaster by March 1945 as Allied forces prepared to cross the Rhine River into Germany. The U.S. Airborne was called upon for Operation Varsity, a massive daylight paratroop drop. The C-46 was pressed into service alongside the veteran C-47. Its larger cargo doors and roomier cabin made it ideal for carrying paratroopers. But what should have been a demonstration of its utility became a bloodbath. 19 of the 72 C-46S used in the drop were shot down, many bursting into flames when hit. Unlike the C-47 SS, the Commandos had not been fitted with self-sealing fuel tanks, making them extraordinarily vulnerable to German anti-aircraft fire. So catastrophic were the losses that General Matthew Ridgway forbade the aircraft from ever being used in airborne operations again. Though the war ended soon after, the stigma clung to the Commando. Even outside of direct combat, pilots distrusted it. Stories of engines failing, fuel vapor locks, carburetor icing, and mid-air explosions circulated widely. Air Transport Command crews grimly referred to it as the Flying Coffin, a nickname that captured both their reliance on it and their fear of it. The C-47 Skytrain, by comparison, became a beloved icon, remembered for its reliability and ruggedness. The Commando, by contrast, became synonymous with danger, a machine that demanded respect but never gave its crews peace of mind. After the war, the military quickly phased it out of frontline use, though some remained in secondary service until the late 1960s. A handful were converted into passenger airliners, but their high fuel consumption and maintenance costs made them uncompetitive against the glut of surplus C-47SC flooding the civilian market. Instead, the C-46 found a niche in cargo operations, particularly in regions where its power and size outweighed its drawbacks. In South America, it became a workhorse in mountainous countries like Bolivia, Peru, and Chile, hauling goods over the Andes where few other aircraft could manage. In the Canadian Arctic, airlines like Lam Air and later Buffalo Airways kept them flying into the late 20th century, relying on their ability to carry bulky loads into remote, icy runways. The Commando also returned to war. In 1948, during Israel's War of Independence, a dozen surplus C-46S were smuggled out of the United States and flown on a circuitous route to Czechoslovakia, where they picked up dismantled fighter planes and weapons for the young state. Some were even used as makeshift bombers, with crews shoving explosives out of the cargo doors over enemy positions. Later, during the Korean War and the long conflict in Vietnam, the C-46 again appeared, ferrying supplies, dropping paratroopers, and in some cases supporting clandestine operations. The CIA used them extensively under its covert airline, Air America. One Commando, loaded far beyond its normal passenger capacity, carried 152 evacuees out of Saigon in April 1975, the last fixed-wing aircraft to leave as the city fell. In hindsight, some of its failures can be explained. The lack of wing vents to drain leaking fuel, the exposed electrical contacts, the absence of self-sealing tanks in combat zones. These were oversights born of haste. After the war, modifications improved its safety, but its reputation never recovered. Even today, aviation historians debate whether it was unfairly maligned, pointing out that other aircraft also suffered losses and mechanical problems. But among the men who flew them, the verdict was clear. They respected the C-46's power, but never trusted it with their lives. The story of the Curtiss C-46 Commando is thus one of contradictions. It was sleek in design, yet crude in execution, a marvel of engineering ambition and a nightmare of practical reliability. It was indispensable in hauling supplies over the Himalayas, yet infamous for vanishing into them. It could rescue hundreds from a collapsing city, yet explode without warning on a routine supply run. It was a machine that saved lives and claimed them, that represented both the promise and peril of wartime innovation. Even now, a few Commandos continue to fly, scattered in remote parts of the world, their massive fuselages groaning under the weight of cargo. They are survivors of a bygone era, ghosts of a war that ended 80 years ago, but still echoes in their rivets and engines. And every time one lifts off, its past rides with it, the legend of the Flying Coffin, the plane that gave everything and took so much in return.